Hello, I'm Brian Tracy, and welcome to this program on selling. I've spoken to salespeople all over the world. I've spoken to them both in their languages and with simultaneous translation. I've spoken to thousands of people in the Far East, Australia, New Zealand, Latin America, throughout Europe, and I speak to about 50 to 75,000 salespeople each year in the United States and Canada. One of the things I found is that selling is a macrocosm for life, is that people who are excellent in selling are excellent human beings. One of the most wonderful things that you get from becoming very, very good as a sales personality is you become very, very good in dealing with people in every other area of life as well. So this session is on building customer relationships, but in a way it's a session on building relationships with other people. In a way, this session is for everybody watching, whether you're in sales or not, but it especially works when you're working with people with whom you want to build high-quality relationships that will go on and on into the future and will turn out to be profitable for you. Here's the first point, the most important point of all. The number one reason for success or failure in our society is your ability to get along with others. It's social skills. We found that poor social skills will hold you back more than anything else. The Carnegie Institute of Technology did a study over 10 years, and they looked at thousands of people who've been let go by their companies. They found that 95% of those who were let go was because of poor social skills, not because of lack of technical competence. Now, the key to social skills, the key to number two, the ability to get along well with others, and by the way, there's a direct relationship between your ability to get along well with yourself and your ability to get along well with others. The more you like yourself, the more you like others, the more you respect yourself, the more you respect others, and so on. The ability to get along with others, social skills, is based on making others feel important. Make other people feel important. If you're looking for the bottom line of all success in relationships, whether it's with customers or others, make others feel important. And people who are really excellent in social skills can get along with a variety. They can get along with a variety of different people. Almost anybody can get along with a few people, but people who can get along with a wide variety of people are always the most liked, the most respected, the most successful. Now here's the third point with regard to the most important of all skills, and it's the key of likability. We know that there are certain influences that cause people to buy from us and not buy from us. We also know that the more a person likes you and respects you, the more open they are to your influence. The more likely they will buy from you, the more likely they are to pay more, the more likely they are to be satisfied with your product or service. We also know that since emotions distort valuations, the more a person feels positive towards you, the more willing they are to let go little problems with your product or service. They'll make excuses, if you like. If they don't like you, on the other hand, they will distort the other way, and they'll be far less patient or tolerant. Here's the key word. In every study of top salespeople, we find the most popular word used to describe them is the word nice. And we say to people, well, what do you mean by the word nice? Well, nice means that they're basically cheerful people. They're pleasant people to have around. That nice salespeople, nice people in every part of life are always the most popular, always the most effective, always the most influenced, and ultimately the very best paid. Our ability to get along well with others will do more to help us than any other thing that we can develop. Now, because of product service complexity, and your product and your service today are more complex than ever before, and because complexity, and because the customer cannot tell the actual ingredients, what's in your box, how your company works, we know today that the relationship is more important than your product or service. The relationship is more important to the customer than your product or service for very specific reasons. Is the customer goes largely on intuition and largely on feeling. And when the customer has to make a final choice between you and someone else, or between you and no one at all, what the customer does is the customer relies on their inner feeling, how well they feel about whether or not you're the one to buy from. They don't know if your product or service will work or not, but they know inside whether or not they have a good feeling about you. And the better your relationship with them, the more positive you are, the more likable, the more nice you are, the more the person is going to buy from you. Well, Let's look at some of the critical factors of likability. We know that the more the person likes you, the lower is his or her fear of failure, the lower is his or her fear of making a mistake and of paying too much. Often, the lower is his or her resistance to your sales message. The more likable you are, the more positive you are, the more susceptible and open the person is to you. Your initial aim when you meet a customer for the first time is to build a bridge between you and the customer. As a matter of fact, your initial aim when you meet any person that you care about or that you imagine you'll care about for the first time is to build a bridge. And let me explain what I mean. Here's you when you start off, and here's the other person. I'll just write other rather than customer. And between you, it's almost like there's a river. There's a gulf. Your job is to construct a bridge across, a personal bridge where you talk and ask questions about him or her personally, which is, sort of what we do when we meet people socially. We say, hi, how are you, and how long have you been in town? We build a bridge between ourselves and the other person, and only once we have a bridge can we then go on to building a relationship which can lead to selling. So here are the 7 keys to building rapport with customers. These 7 keys are time honored, they're timeless, and you can use them with any person at all. Number 1 in the 7 keys is a positive mental attitude. A positive mental attitude is more important than you can possibly imagine. A positive mental attitude, as we said before, is a person who's cheerful. This is a person who's nice. This is a person who's likable. This is a person that people feel comfortable with. I have worked with roomfuls, indeed, entire conventions full of some of the highest paid salespeople in the world. And the higher up people go in the field of sales, the nicer and more pleasant they are. Now, how do you develop a positive mental attitude? There's a basic rule that a positive mental attitude, which goes hand in hand with success in virtually any field that involves other people, a positive mental attitude is a positive and constructive response to stress and to difficulty. The time that you have a positive mental attitude is when things are going wrong, not when things are going right. Anybody can be positive when things are going right. It's when things are falling apart. So therefore, you pre-prepare in your mind and you resolve that no matter what happens, you're going to keep your mind up. You're going to keep yourself positive. And here's the best rule of all. It is to always look for the good. Always look for the good in any situation. Always look for the positive part of any situation. Always interpret things positively. Here's something that we know from the work by Dr. Martin Seligman at University of Pennsylvania. What he found was that successful people, people who are optimists, always have a tendency to explain things to themselves and to others in a positive way. He called this explanatory style. If something went wrong, they put a positive twist on it. If they had made a mistake, they said, boy, that's too bad. Well, we'll do it better next time. If they had difficulties achieving a goal, they'll say, well, we'll achieve it next week. In other words, they always interpreted things positively, and here's the key. The way you interpret things to yourself determines how you feel about them. If something goes wrong in your external world and you say, well, there's something to learn from that. If you look within it for a valuable lesson, you say, what can we learn from this? Or I guess everything comes to teach us something. I wonder what we're meant to learn from this. When you explain things positively to yourself, especially in times of difficulty, you develop a positive mental attitude. You remain positive, and the key to being positive is to smile, relax, and be easygoing. Smile, relax, and be easygoing. Make a decision in advance that no matter what happens, nothing is going to shake you up. Be a friendly, easygoing, positive, likable person. Here's the second key to being likable, the second of the 7 keys to success, and it is courtesy. You know, Thomas Carlyle, the English writer, once said that you can tell a big man by the way he treats little men. Courtesy means to be polite and to be correct in your behavior with other people. It's absolutely amazing how many people get a long way in life, and then because of poor or sloppy or slobbish manners, they foul up their lives and their careers. And here's the rule: be polite to everyone. Today, we are hypersensitive about politeness, which means that if you are rude or short-tempered or curt to someone in an organization, very often that will get up higher in the organization and they'll decide not to deal with you. In my company, for example, we have people who call us all the time. Oops. And we have a basic rule. If a person is not polite to someone that they speak to on the telephone, then we tell them that we're not interested in doing business with them. If a salesperson is rude to one of our staff or rude to our receptionist, we refuse to deal with them. We refuse to buy their product or service. Even if a customer calls us and will not and is not polite to someone in our business, we just simply won't buy from them. Or we won't sell to them. We say we really will not tolerate anybody in our company being poorly treated. Here is number 3, is acceptance. Acceptance is one of the most powerful of all things that we do, because we know from our studies of interpersonal psychology, acceptance satisfies a deep subconscious need to feel important and worthwhile. Remember, your job is to raise people's self-esteem, to make them feel important. And when you unconditionally accept another person, that person feels more valuable. They feel more important. Their self-esteem goes up. You know that whenever any two people meet, the very first thing that is established is a level of acceptance. You know from your own experience that if you meet another person and the person shakes hands with you and turns away, or the person doesn't even shake hands with you, or the person is not open to meeting you, you know that you feel angry, you feel defensive, you feel like striking back, you feel insulted, your self-esteem goes down, and so on. But we also know that when you meet a person who smiles at you and shakes hands and is pleased to meet you and is happy to see you, we find that you feel good about yourself. So when you meet a new person, the very first thing you do is you shake hands firmly. And by the way, a firm handshake is very important. You shake hands firmly and you say, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much for your time. I really have been looking forward to talking to you. In other words, make it clear that this meeting with this person is important, and they will feel more valuable and important themselves, even if they are powerful people in large organizations. Now, the second part of acceptance is unconditional positive regard. Unconditional positive regard. Unconditional acceptance. But it means, and it's a psychotherapeutic term, it means that you are completely non-judgmental. And you know, it's interesting, most of us have been raised with a lot of psychological anxieties over being negatively judged by others. When you are completely unconditional in your acceptance, when you are completely non-judgmental, you make people feel very relaxed and comfortable around you. Psychotherapists find that the only way they can help a person is if the person completely relaxes and trusts them. So what they do is they practice a therapeutic detachment, which consists of unconditional positive regard and being completely non-judgmental in whatever the person says. The more a person can unload and talk to another person freely about what's in their mind without the other person reacting negatively in any way, the more relaxed and comfortable a person becomes. In all your relationships with other people, this is critical, and it's vitally important in your relationships with your customers. Practice unconditional acceptance so that when they think of you and when they see you coming, they feel good about themselves. This will translate into wonderful relationships and often into long-term business. And the third part of acceptance is to smile. Smile is really important. When you smile at another person, when you are glad to see him or her, when you smile at them across the street, first of all, when you smile, your self-esteem goes up. But second of all, when you smile, their self-esteem goes up as well. When you smile at a person, you say, I recognize you as a valuable and worthwhile person. And just a smile is all that it takes. If you have staff, smile at your staff. If you have children or spouse, smile when you see them. If you have friends, smile when you see those people as well. Smiling is one of the most powerful ways to build strong relationships. And you'll find your very top salespeople tend to be very genial. They tend to be very genial in that they smile a lot. That doesn't mean that you go around with a big grin on your face. It just means that you're a pleasant, happy person to be around. Here's a question. Would you like to buy from someone who is happy or someone who is sad? Would you like to buy from someone who's positive or someone who's negative? Would you like to buy from someone who's cheerful or from someone who's a pessimist? And the answer is that you'd probably like to buy from someone who's more cheerful. Now here's the fifth. It's agreeability. Be agreeable. Be agreeable in all your relationships with others. There's a basic rule that, with regard to agreeability, that says if you want to get along, you have to go along. What we know is this, is that people like agreeable people. People like people who are friendly and who go along with them, people who go with the flow, and nobody likes a person who's argumentative, complaining, difficult, doesn't like the way things are going on. So here's the rules with regard to agreeability. First of all, never argue or disagree with other people. If a person says your price is too high, you say, I understand exactly how you feel. Others felt the same way, but this is what they found when they actually learned what we could do. I can get it cheaper from your competitors. Well, that's all right. Many people that we spoke to, when we spoken to them initially, felt that they could buy it cheaper from someone else until they found out what we could do. Never be disagreeable. Always agree. Second point is never tell people that they're wrong. When I was a young person, I used to argue a lot, and I was a very good arguer, but I also found myself spending a lot of time alone. Never argue or disagree or tell a person they're wrong, because if you do you know what it does? It tells them that they as people are wrong, that they as people are not good. It lowers their self-esteem. It makes them angry and defensive. And finally, third, if something is unimportant, let it pass. If someone says something that is inaccurate, like so-and-so paid $5,000 for something when you know it was $4,000 or $6,000, if it's not important, let it pass. There's a rule that says that don't make me wrong even when I am. Don't make me wrong even when I am. And especially don't make people wrong in front of other people. By the way, if something is important and you can't let it pass, instead of saying you're wrong and disagreeing, use what is called third-party disagreement. Third-party disagreement is where you put the words into the mouth of another person. You say something like this. Well, that's an interesting point, but how would you answer the question if someone were to ask you this? Or how would you respond if one of our customers were to say this about that particular point? What we found is this, is that if the person has a good answer, they can answer it, and there's no problem. You say, oh, that's very interesting. If the person doesn't have an answer, they can actually back off without loss of face, because the person that they're actually arguing with isn't even there and doesn't even exist. The very best conversationalists are those who bring up disagreements on critical issues. They bring up those issues and they put those disagreements in the minds of other people. Well, here's another characteristic of raising self-esteem, and it's admiration. Admiration raises the self-esteem of others because it makes people feel good about the things that they have and the things that they are. Here's some of the areas where you can practice admiration. First of all, and you never go wrong, is with personal appearance. People like to feel that they look good. So when you compliment a person on their clothes, when you say that you like their clothes, you like their shoes, you like their tie, their dress, their briefcase, when you tell them, and here's great winners, say, boy, have you lost weight? One of the most complimentary things that you can say to anybody in our society is, have you lost weight? And even if a person hasn't, they feel pleased that you've noticed. You can also admire people's traits and qualities. If a person has a reputation for being very punctual, you can say, boy, I sure admire your punctuality. I wish I could get a hold of that. If a person has a reputation for being a hard worker, say, you know, you're one of the hardest workers in this industry. People love to have their qualities admired by others. Remember, people have invested a lot of their emotions in who they are and how they appear. And if you recognize those things, what will happen is that their self-esteem will go up. Another thing that you can admire of people is their possessions, especially at home or work. What we find is that people invest a lot of their emotion, a lot of their self-esteem in the things that they buy. When you compliment a person's car, when you compliment a person's briefcase, when you're in a person's home and you compliment their furniture or their artwork or something special that they have in their house, when you compliment anything that a person has acquired or paid money for, their self-esteem goes up and they lean toward you almost the way a flower leans toward the sun. They like you better because you make them feel better. Another thing that you can admire of other people is to raise their self-esteem and to build this relationship is their accomplishments. If a person has a degree on the wall go and look at it and study it carefully and comment on it. Remember, that person probably spent years earning that degree. If a person has won an award or a trophy for an accomplishment professionally or for a sports event, be sure to admire that and ask them how they did it and how did it work out and who else was competing and how long have they been in the field. People love to talk about the things that they've invested their lives in becoming better at. Now, another way to raise self-esteem in other people is appreciation. Appreciation is based on what we call an attitude of gratitude. It's just being a thankful person. And there's a basic rule that says that the more things that you give thanks for, the more things you will have to give thanks for. One of the great exercises that you can go through on your own, aside from selling, is to every so often make a list of all the things in your life for which you're grateful. Your health, your family, your job, the country you live in, your car, your home, your friends. If you start writing down a list of everything for which you're grateful, you start to have a thankful feeling about you that actually flows out and it glows from you and affects other people. So thank everyone for everything. Thank the people that you meet for the things that they do for you. Thank everybody in your home for every little thing. Thank your customers for their time. Say, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are. Whenever you thank a person, you raise their self-esteem. Whenever you raise their self-esteem, they like you more. When they like you more, they want to do business with you. Another thing that you can do is send thank you notes. All the top salespeople, all the top business people send thank you notes all the time. They send thank you notes, they send thank you cards, and they send thank you gifts. If a person buys something worthwhile from you, then send them a nice little gift. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can be a fruit basket. It can be a book. It can be something different that you've picked up somewhere. But a little gift with a little note of thanks will remain in that person's mind when they think about you for years and years and years. Now, approval is another wonderful way to raise the self-esteem of others. Approval satisfies the deep subconscious needs of people. It raises their self-esteem. In fact, another word for approval is praise. And one of the definitions of self-esteem is the degree to which a person feels praiseworthy. When you praise a person for anything, they feel praiseworthy. Their self-esteem goes up, their sense of value goes up, and their attitude toward you improves. So, what do you praise people for? Praise them for their accomplishments. Praise them for big accomplishments. Praise them for little accomplishments. But be generous, as Dale Carnegie said, in your praise and approbation. Praise them for everything. The big rule, by the way, is praise people in public whenever you can. The more you praise a person in public, the more it affects their self-esteem. That's why they always give major awards in public in front of large groups, because it causes people to feel absolutely fantastic about themselves for a long time. Praise people for personal qualities and abilities. Praise people for little things that they do and for little things that they've accomplished. And especially if you're going to praise people immediately. Praise them specifically and praise them clearly. Instead of saying you're a great person or you did a great job, be very specific. You are absolutely excellent in this position and you did a fine job doing this specific activity. The last part of praise, by the way, is if you want people to develop a particular behavior, to do something over and over again, then what you do is you praise them continuously. You praise them every single time they do it until they start to do it automatically. The final key in raising people's self-esteem is attention. Attention makes people feel valued. The more you pay close attention to a person, the more happy and positive they feel about themselves. Their self-esteem actually goes up to the degree to which they feel that you are closely listening to them. How do you pay attention? Well, first of all, you listen attentively. You smile, you nod, you agree. You pay attention as though what they're saying is the most interesting and fascinating thing you've heard in a long time. Second of all, you listen actively. Lean forward. If you're standing up, lean your weight forward on the balls of your feet. A person can't even see it, but they can actually feel the intensity of the attention that you're feeling, that you're expressing. And listen actively with your hands and your body and nod as though you are really involved in the conversation. Be sure to say things like, I agree, and you're right, and yeah, that makes sense, and yeah, that's good, geez, yes, smile. Sometimes when I sit in on a public talk by someone else's, I sit right down by the front and I nod and smile and give the person continual feedback that he or she is doing a great job. And it's amazing, out of a large audience, that person will gradually focus in and will be communicating almost always with me. Try it yourself. Wonderful words that you can use when you're talking to a person. Say, I understand exactly how you feel. You know, if that happened to me, I'd feel the same way too. Telling people that you understand and that you agree with them and that you really value what they say really raises their self-esteem. Now finally, I want to end this session with what I call the law of indirect effort. The law of indirect effort says that we achieve our goals involving other people more indirectly than directly. Rather than going after the things we want from others directly, we instead turn it around and we go after them indirectly. First of all, it says that if you want others to be impressed by you, then be impressed by them. If you want to have a friend, be a friend. If you want to have others help you, then you help them. If you want to be happy, make others happy. If you want to feel good about yourself, make others feel good about themselves. And finally, the most important of all rules in relationships, in sales or anywhere else, is to practice the golden rule. Treat others the way you'd like them to treat you. Make them feel good about themselves the way you'd like them to make you feel good about yourself, and you'll be successful not only in selling, but in everything you do and with everyone you meet.